Hey guys, it's Stevie Dahl with Homefront Harmony. Welcome to a new episode. This podcast is made to provide resources to military families, whether active duty or veterans, for mental health, financial, and well-being. And I am so excited today because every once in a while, every episode, we pretty much get phenomenal guests. But this time, we actually have a former commander for the Thunderbirds. Your girl's dying with the fighter pilot in the room. So, hello, Rob Notch.
Hi, Stevie.
So, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here. One of the things I like to kind of discuss with my guests is what got you into the military? What kind of led you down that path?
Right. Thanks. My dad, right up front, my dad was in the Air Force for a short amount of time.
Okay.
He was a flyer. He was a navigator on some of the strategic bombers back in the 1950s. And so despite having a short career in the military, he always had a fond connection to the culture.
Okay.
And so when I was a kid growing up, he was a traveling salesman, and he would always bring home a model airplane.
Aww.
So it started off with like World War II, you know, Spitfires and P-51 Mustangs. And eventually he started taking me to air shows.
Okay.
And I saw the Blue Angels, back in the day.
Love the
and
Blue
then
Angels.
I saw the Thunderbirds. And one day, I think I was like 8 or 9. And I looked at my dad and I said, that looks really cool. I think I'd like to do that.
Okay.
And he said, okay, you got to learn how to play golf and you got to go to the Air Force Academy.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we one of those came to fruition. I did go to the Air Force Academy. I struggle playing golf, and I was just absolutely. It's such a. I'm so blessed. I was 8.
That's awesome.
I said I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I went to the Air Force Academy. It was definitely not a straight road, and I got there and I wound up flying fighter jets for almost 29 years. It was awesome.
So cool. So cool. I love that so much. So here's a little insight into Stevie's world. When Stevie was in high school, her goal was to be the first female Blue Angel.
We just
Stevie
had that.
let a counselor talk her out of it. Don't listen to people sometimes. Okay. No, I'm really proud of her. I've actually bummed her term with the Blue
she
Angels
just wrapped up.
just ended. So I'm waiting for the next one to come out because I think it's so cool to see in it. So very cool. Now, how long were you actually in service?
28 and like 3/4 years. So just shy of 29. Just 29.
Which is amazing because he's 34, people. So thank you so much for your service.
My pleasure.
First and foremost. Did you actually spend time in combat?
I did 5 deployments. So
Wow.
4 to the Middle East in support of operations over Iraq, and then almost a year on the ground in Afghanistan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We had a few individuals, guests on here. Brian Jensen, he's Army. He's been on the ground several times, been deployed, but got to spend a lot of fun time in Europe.
Yeah.
Being stationed over there as well. So the balance out came in that area. And then we had Omar Foster, who also spent some time near the combat area as well. So it's amazing to me, the different variances of what everybody kind of goes through and what dictates for their path. Because knowing you were going to be a pilot, the odds of you getting a deployment are pretty much up there in the higher rank, you know, so.
Right. It was, some of it was, it is what it is. I never like being away from your family.
Right.
Of course. And nobody wants to be in those situations, unfortunately. But I think one of the positive experiences that come out of that is the ability to train for years with your unit, your teammates, and then to go and actually do the mission. So that can be very professionally rewarding to be put in that crucible with the men and women around you that you've been training for, and to execute and to do what you need to do, and to hopefully bring everybody home is very professionally rewarding. So I am thankful for some of those deployments, some of those not so much.
Right, right. Fair enough.
And everybody's experience is completely different. My experience is more than some, but way less than a lot of others. So it was just that's what we did. And
absolutely.
Yeah, it was a busy couple years.
I imagine. Now, you mentioned leaving the family behind, and you guys know I'm always going to bring up the family. So did you have younger children that you had to leave when you were in deployment?
All the time.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'll tell you one story. We moved 17 times in my military career.
Okay.
So averaging about 16 months at each duty station. Some were longer, some were others. So I just finished my second deployment. Okay. I'd come home a couple of 6 or 8 months later. We'd take a change of station, we moved to Okinawa, Japan.
Okay.
And so we moved to
We were
Okinawa,
in
Japan.
Okinawa.
Love it.
Okay.
And my daughter is born in Okinawa, Japan.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the unit that I'm assigned to is like, you're not deploying because you've done 2 already, which was kind of high time for that period. This is the late 90s. So it wasn't, and they're like, hey, you've just done 2. We're not going to send you on your 3rd. You got a brand new baby girl. And I said, cool, thank you.
Yeah.
And then like 3 weeks before the unit leaves, they come and they say, hey, we need you to deploy.
Oh, no.
We had certain people fall out, other people left, and we need you to deploy. So I move into a brand new house on base. My infant daughter is bleeding out of her ears from ear infections and eardrums. My wife is sick as a dog. So she's got some respiratory infection. There are boxes all over the house, and I'm putting on my tan flight suit and saying goodbye. And I remember going, this isn't gonna go well.
Wow.
This isn't gonna go well. So yeah, two kids. My son and daughter are in their late 20s now, and still married to the same amazing woman.
That's
over
awesome.
33 years this summer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's
well,
good.
thank her for her service. She is a hero on the home front.
100%.
So I always love that. My dad always said his calm in the storm was my mom. Knowing she had it handled, and so he could go do what he needed
100%.
to do. But yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic when you're moving around and you're in different places and you see all kinds of different relationships in the military life. And some work out better than others, just like in normal life. It just, the military adds a little extra special pizzazz. But it's much like first responders.
I agree.
They deal with a lot of similar frustrations on that end too. But it's cool when you get to see those that have stayed the course and it's been able to work out really well for them.
I was super blessed. I married an amazing teammate and partner who she had designs for her life. When she was probably going to go international business. Her father had been longtime oil and gas CEO multi times over. So there was a corporate life in store for her. And she kind of pivoted all the way away from that and became full-time mom, stay at home, support this. I moved to Japan for 7 years and lived in England, and she became all in on taking care of our young families and not just our family, but other young families. So much so that when we were one of the most proudest moments I have is I was the base commander in England for 2 years from 2014 to 2016. And annually they pick a command team. So the commander and the spouse generally, a commander spouse, and they decide who's the most successful, engaged, command team, and we won that for Europe. Aww. And it had a little bit to do with me, but it had all to do with her. Aww. And it was a way that she took care of families and the kids on the base and engaged with the community. It was really a super proud moment for me to watch her win that.
And what is her name?
Her name is Dawn. Dawn,
keep him. Okay, just saying.
You heard it from Stevie.
Keep him. You can smack him around, but keep him. So now one of the things that I think is really cool is the travel you get to do.
Right.
I remember my mom said when she and my dad first got together, he said, what do you want to do? And she said, I want to travel the world. I want to go to the moon. And he said, okay. And they did. They're beach people, so they tended to prefer the beach. South Pacific, we spent a lot of time in. That was their fave to go to. And so that's why that's my fave food. But yeah, by the time I was 14, I'd been more places than most people will ever go in their life. I've lived in Japan, Guam, Australia. We'd always stop off in Hawaii, Colorado, California, Texas. I was born when they were stationed here, Arizona. I mean, it's so cool. Yeah. And now the travel bug is in me. So it's like I want to keep it going, and thankfully my husband has it too. So we 100%. Travel. Yeah.
My son, it's funny. We were living in England and my son and I were going to go take a boys' weekend. Okay. So he's a senior in high school. Okay. And I said, hey, let's run up to Scotland for the weekend. We're living just north of London. And he looks at me and he goes, can I get a passport stamp for that? And I said, well, no, you're in the United Kingdom, so you're not going to get a passport stamp. He's like, I don't want to go. Oh. We got to go someplace else. So we wind up going to Copenhagen, And, I said, well, we can fly over to Copenhagen. He's like, cool, let's go to Copenhagen. I mean, he became the ultimate travel junkie. And, both the kids, almost all the same places you mentioned. Singapore. They kind of hit up Disney World in every location globally. My son was on the hunt to get all the 3 city states. So he got the Vatican, he got Singapore, he never got Monaco. I mean, this is a high school vibe.
Yeah.
So he goes up, he goes off to college. He goes to Texas A&M. Okay. And he goes, I'm done moving. I'm kind of done the military brat thing. I'm like, I'm done.
Okay.
I said, cool, no problem. You did great. And like about 6 months later, he calls me up and he goes, hey, Dad, there's a study abroad program. I think I'm going to do it. And I was like, well, like what happened to like being done and staying in Texas? He goes, I think I'm ready to go. So I'm thinking he's going to go to like France or Germany. He goes to Cairo, Egypt. He's like, well, I've never been there before. So I'm like, you couldn't go someplace like closer? You're just going to go to Egypt? And he rolled to Egypt for, this semester of study abroad, which was super cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
They love traveling. It kind of bit us as well.
Oh, yeah, it does. And my husband and I just went to Italy a couple of years ago, and he had never been that far. Like he'd been to Costa Rica and stuff like that, but he hadn't ever been that far. And his mom is Italian. Yeah. And so he was like so excited to go. And so this year we're actually doing, because it's my 50th in October, so we're doing London and Paris.
Perfect.
And we're going to do the train under the channel. Because for years ago, I did a like bus tour by myself. Mm-hmm. And it was before I'd met him. And we hit several stops in Europe. And we did we went from England to Paris. So we went from London to Paris, and we were on a ferry. So we saw the White Cliffs of Dover. Cool. And being a military child, I'm like, oh, I'm going to see the White Cliffs of Dover. This is so cool.
Like, check.
And we stand on the ferry, and I'm like, okay. And I sent my thing to my dad, and my dad was like, yeah, I've had a couple things like that happen where it's just like, okay, saw it. Next.
100%.
It's so fun. So how did you go from fighter pilot, base commander, Thunderbird commander?
Well, the Thunderbirds worked for me. The Thunderbirds worked for me. Okay. So at Nellis Air Force Base, the operational wing commander is a 1-star general. So generally a graduated wing commander. So they've already been a base commander once as a colonel. Okay. And then of that group of about 70 or so colonels, they'll pick about 4 or 5 that will go be 1-star base commander, wing commanders. And I was blessed to get that opportunity to come over to Vegas and do that. I'd been stationed at Nellis. That was my 4th time being stationed in Vegas. I mean, hence the reason we retired and lived in Vegas. Is we were stationed here so much and we loved it. And so had a chance to go there. And the Thunderbird team, led by a lieutenant colonel, would generally report to a colonel. But in the case of the Thunderbirds, they report directly to the 1-star general. So so that was the team I got to help, come out of a really tough period of time. Okay. So in right before I took command, they had unfortunately a fatality during training. The number 4 slot pilot, who was really well beloved and a really competent aviator, unfortunately lost his life in a training accident. They had also just unfortunately removed the previous Thunderbird commander for cause. And so as I got sent to Nellis by the 4-star bosses, I had my go do these things. And the top of the list was you need to go provide the supervision and maturity and the leadership to the Thunderbirds to help them kind of right the ship a little bit. Gotcha. I'd like to say I take some of that credit, but that would be disingenuous. I think we hired a really fantastic Thunderbird commander named John Caldwell, and Boss Caldwell came in as a lieutenant colonel. He had been a squadron commander before, and he and I helped him be successful in leading the Thunderbird team. It was a crazy couple years. So we thought we were on a good track with the Thunderbirds, and then COVID hit. Oh, yeah. And so I think, the world kind of didn't know what to do with itself for the first few weeks, thinking it was a short-term thing, if everybody remembers. And Brick Caldwell and I, his call sign was Brick. And so Brick and I had this conversation like, hey, we live in this amazing city. This is our home. Maybe we should start contemplating ways to get the Thunderbirds out over the city. Yeah. They train on the other side of the mountains. And I used to see the Blue Angels come home from their trips and they would go down Pensacola Beach.
So cool.
And I was like, we need to do that here in Vegas. Allegiant Stadium was being built.
Yes.
We knew we would have a Super Bowl at some point.
Yep.
So we said, we got to figure out a way to get this Thunderbird team from the training range around the valley. And so the team started working through some dynamics. And when COVID hit, we said, well, maybe there's an opportunity to kind of maybe fly around the valley for some inspiration, right? To kind of get people to, do, a little of excitement. And, after some fits and starts, we actually did that one time, and we flew over all 17 or 18 hospitals in the valley with flags for the first responders, and that turned into this nationwide America Strong flybys, with the Blue Angels side by side. So that was a wild time. The Thunderbirds are a great team, and I spent a lot of time working with them. I guess, and I've totally forgot your question now, Steve.
No, you're fine. Actually,
we're just talking.
I was going to bring up COVID anyway because my husband and I went outside and stood.
Good.
We have a hot tub in our back that we can stand on, and we stood and we saw them fly by because you can almost see Allegiant Stadium the way our house is positioned.
Yeah.
Vegas is small. If you've never been here, people, it's a big town, but it's small and it's awesome. I'm away from the Strip, but I'm only 15 minutes to it. And we saw them fly by, and my parents stood outside and watched them fly by and see. And it was perfect because it was just,
we needed it.
It invigorated everybody. It was a strength thing. It gave everybody a positive kick to it because we were all stuck inside the house and going crazy.
I was on Channel 13 live.
Oh my goodness!
Narrating it, with the Channel 13 newscasters when the team was out flying around. I'll tell an interesting story, Stevie. Is then we went kind of national with the team. So we put the Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds together down in Florida to practice because this is it's not usual for the teams to be co-located, right? And they wound up going. One of the very first combined trips was up to New York City.
Okay.
And you remember New York City at the time, early COVID, they had it was horrible.
Oh, it was
the
rough.
numbers were terrible.
Yeah.
The scene was terrible. And so they wind up flying over one of the hospitals, and all of the physicians had been on the roof. And unbelievably, this is important. One of the physicians had committed suicide the day before. It was that bad.
Yeah.
And then here comes the team the next day, and the physician on the roof, and you see CNN and MSNBC, and they're just bawling. The motivation to continue to keep fighting, the perseverance, whatever they got from the things that you were talking about. I remember I was on MSNBC National talking to them when we were doing that, and we got the feedback, and we said, okay, this is a good thing.
Right.
Let's do this. This is a good thing. And so we did it all over the United States. Did it Southern California, Texas, up and down the East Coast. It was crazy.
So I actually follow the Blue Angels on social media, and they started posting videos from when you guys were flying side by side when they were with the Thunderbirds. And I'm sorry, guys, I just love
that's a
the
thing
jets
now. They
flying
do that now.
and everything. It's just the coolest thing ever, and how they do the turns close to each other and everything. And it's just, holy cow, it is so awesome to see. So then to have them fly near your house and you feel the rumble and the power of the engines. Oh my goodness. Could have used a cigarette.
They're both
after
really
that.
good teams. They're a lot close. They look close. They are really close.
Yeah.
I mean, I must have 15 or so sorties with them, thinking they would be close. I haven't been a fighter pilot my whole life. I've flown close airplanes, but then the persistence of how close they are and the closeness at which they are, upside down, was truly uncomfortable. So it was truly uncomfortable.
I imagine. Okay, so here we go. Pop quiz. In the original Top Gun, when Maverick inverted his jet to go down to say hi to the MiG, could that be done?
Sure, in the realm of hypotheticals, of course.
Okay. Just checking.
I mean, you see the Blue Angels have this one where the wingmen are straight up and down, and then 1 and 4 are inverted, and they're flying with overlapped wings. Yeah, that's as close as theoretically, Maverick is in the first Top Gun.
Oh, there you go.
So I mean, that to me is one of the signature moves that the Blues do.
Yeah,
and it's killer. It's awesome.
It's insane.
I think the teams have their own cultures, and it's really fun to be involved with both teams, and they have their own style points.
Yeah. What's the signature move for Thunderbirds?
I would say the signature move happens to be like the Diamond Pass, which is incredibly tight. It's super precise. It's very close to the show. That's probably one of their signature moves, and then maybe the Bomb Burst. So the Bomb Burst at the end, which is definitely one of their moves.
That's a cool one. I do like that.
And the Blues are great. there's a difference. The Blue Angels, they fly the Super Hornet. It's a big plane.
Yeah.
So they're the exact same distance from the crowd that the Thunderbirds are, but it's a big plane. They look like they're really close. So it's a unique visual experience to see the two teams opposed against each other.
I didn't realize that the Thunderbirds flew different.
Yeah, the Thunderbirds flew the F-16. Which is a Lockheed Martin plane, General Dynamics plane, and then it's made by Lockheed Martin, single engine, super lightweight, super maneuverable, 9Gs, all the whole works. Yeah. And the Super Hornet's kind of a bigger, beefy, multi-role fighter, so 2 engines. It's made by Boeing. It used to be made by McDonnell Douglas, now made by my company, Boeing, which is awesome, but big, beefy plane.
Are you working with Boeing now?
I am.
So I'm the FSO for my company.
There you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
There we go. My whole world ends up following around some way, which is ironic that I ended up in a position with federal contracts because I hate politics. And I have to be in D.C. around people quite a bit for my job. And it's like, but luckily most everybody I deal with and interact with is a veteran. So it's really easy for me. I'm like, oh, family. Okay. That's one thing that I have loved, that it doesn't matter. I mean, my dad retired in 88 and, it doesn't matter where I go, whether I served or not. The fact that I have a father who served, all of a sudden I have instant family of people. Every branch, everywhere,
That's cool.
I love that part of the military community, that it just continues to grow that way.
Cool.
This is so huge. You're never alone in the military community. And if you are a part of it and you feel like you are, then you reach out. We talk about this all the time. You reach out. You want to reach out to me? I'll connect you to somebody. Don't sit there and think you're alone. Okay. You are not. So when you got to the point where you were getting ready to get out of service, how you could leave flying planes, I don't know. But okay, so when you decided to get out of service, did you have a plan of what you were going to do? Or did you just kind of figure, no, it's time to step away and we'll
I would say a little bit of both, Stevie. So we knew as a family that we'd kind of reached a level of sacrifice that we were about kind of tapped out. And so we thought it was important that we'd had an amazing career. The Air Force was so good to us. The Air Force had more plans for us, which was very humbling, and they were very clear and shared those with us. So there was a lot of growth and upward mobility that was still. So we were going to turn all that down, in order to focus inward on our family, on some being there and being a little more present, which was cool. Yeah. I would also say we loved Vegas. Seriously, we'd been stationed here. Like, this was our 4th time. I was incredibly engaged with the community. I was a member of the Chamber of Commerce as a trustee. I was speaking at lots of veteran events and all kinds of activities. I had such great friends and we kind of felt like, if we moved, we would lose all of that work that we had done, where we'd built all these friendships and all that stuff, and we would just be bouncing and bouncing and bouncing and bouncing, and before you know it, you're 60. And so we felt like we kind of found a community that we wanted to be a part of, and so we kind of planted roots. So I thought, I thought I might go into the entertainment world. I thought I might be working at the Strip. I had such great friends with MGM and Caesars and Wynn, and we've been having lots of conversations, and things were starting to go well. I had a wonderful breakfast with the CEO of MGM, who's a friend of mine, the morning that he shut down Macau. So when COVID... so our plans are kind of trending in this direction. I was like, wow, I think I can find a job. And then COVID pivoted. And of course, this state, like a lot of states, but this state in particular took a really heavy hit.
We did.
And so what I thought were going to be kind of local job opportunities immediately just kind of fettered away in March and April. So I suddenly found myself with a beautiful home on the west side of town and a nice mortgage and a job that was coming to a close in the midst of a global pandemic that had nearly shut down my state. So I kind of didn't. So I had a plan and it got thwarted. And
what were you going to do in entertainment?
Well, I kind of felt like I would be, involved in the security apparatus or in the leadership role somewhere in the properties.
I'm thinking he's going to go on stage and sing or something and tell us like he could, because my dad could sing. My dad had an amazing voice.
No.
But yeah, Okay. You're going to keep people
dealer.
safe.
It was a blackjack dealer or something. They got to have some tolerance to put up with some of these idiots that come to town. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Believe
so
me.
something like that,
I'm the director of security for an international staffing company. Every once in a while I get an email and I'm like, why did somebody think that was a good idea? Okay. You just kind of finagle it and handle it, or we'll have something come up that, and my boss will be like, people do that? Yeah.
Amazing, right?
They do.
Good stuff.
I don't know why.
I see. Thankfully, I see it on social media now.
There you go. You get a little break from it. Break.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting though, because you're talking about when we got hit by COVID, and the pictures when they did actually shut the Strip down were like out of a scary movie.
It was like out of like World War Z or something.
To see.
Right?
Yeah, it was so eerie to see, and it was just so hard. And we fought back and got back up, and I think that's phenomenal. Yeah. And I think I'm glad we did, what we did on it. Some tactics could have been different. Some of the hotels were doing extremely cheap rooms to get more people coming in, and that brings in special people.
Knife fights at the wind and shootings at the valets.
Yeah. So that was fun. We had heard my in-laws go a lot, and they had heard, I think at the one point when Wynn had the rooms at like $25, they had to institute policies because like 6 people were renting a room.
Right.
At $25 a night.
Super cheap on the airfare too, because nobody was flying.
You don't have any money. You want to go out and have a good time and have a trip, and the Strip was being super cheap so you could gamble. But yeah, it was crazy.
We took the family down to the Strip when they were shut down before they started reopening at the prices. And I remember we walked the entire length of the Strip. I'm sure just Siegfried, Siegfried and Roy. I can't remember which one had passed away, and they had a memorial.
Roy first, and then Siegfried was the second.
Yes, they had a memorial over by the Mirage. by the thing.
Yeah.
And so we walked up and down the Strip, and I think we saw 5 people.
Oh yeah.
And we got to see parts of the Strip we'd never seen before.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, but it was like an apocalypse. It was crazy.
Oh yeah. It was interesting. My husband's in real estate, and he never stopped. We had the first couple of weeks where everybody had to stay at home, and I think maybe he was home 3 weeks, and then people started calling, and people wanted to buy property, and people were moving out of California back into Vegas or wherever. And so he was just going and doing his job. And, mine was easier to stay at the house and be remote,
right.
Which worked out very well at the time with stuff we had to handle on the personal side. But it was, he constantly was going out and having to deal with helping people
So I was
out.
the commander at Nellis when this is going on.
Were you? Okay.
And, there was there was some tension there. There was a large population in the military that wanted to be very conservative and very protective of the people. And so it was much more, hey, let's stay at home. And then there were a lot of us that were like, how we have to keep going.
Yep.
If we're going to fight a near peer threat in the future, how do we know it's not a biological weapon?
Right.
How do we know it's not, they're watching us
seeing how we handle
shut down. I'm like, we have to continue generating sorties. We have to continue figuring this out. And then there was this whole thing, well, you got to social distance. I can't social distance when I'm building a bomb.
Right.
I have to be shoulder to shoulder with my airmen.
Yeah.
When I'm fixing an F-16, there's 2 people up, and they're not wearing masks on the flight line. They're not social distancing, and so we had to figure out a way to kind of get through that.
Yeah.
I would say, just like you said before, I think our tactics could probably have been, if we were to do this again, we would do things a little bit differently, but we had to persevere and push through.
Yep.
Yeah, and it was fascinating. It was a fascinating experience.
It was something to live through. It really was an interesting thing to experience and to live through, and to watch how it worked out. So my nephew, Go Dill, just graduated from Colorado School of Mines yesterday.
Cool. Great school.
Magna cum laude.
Very good school.
In computer sciences. Got a job in Denver. Going to be living the guy is going to just change the world. But he graduated in 2020. And so COVID made his graduation very not as fun as this one's going to be for him, because we're making up for lost time, because dang, the kid did good. But yeah, it's been a very interesting to watch how things grew and evolve. And like my company went remote.
Right.
And now they're like, we deal with people, we interact with human beings, so we have to modify and go more into that world where we are back in the office again,
right.
and we are talking to people again and doing it, because there's only so much you can do without that physical human contact to it.
100%.
And from a security perspective, if I can't look you in the eyes in person, I'm going to be a little wary of you. Sorry. I can read so much from people's eyes. It's always been something I can do. I can tell you if you're lying to me or not just by looking in your eyes. A lot of people don't realize how much of, their body movements and everything that they do are a testament
right.
to who they are as a human being, know? So I imagine you would see that dealing with being a commander and et cetera,
yeah.
but yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Yeah.
So then you ended up not going onto the strip.
No.
So what happened?
No, I kind of bounced around for a little bit, and then I had somebody call me one day and say, hey, can you do some consulting for us?
Okay.
And I said, sure. I thought I could do some consulting. So everybody, if you retire as a general officer or higher, you have a federal cooling off period. That's a requirement.
Okay.
So I knew I had a 1-year cooling off period before I could go do direct work for a company to one of the military services. But I wound up doing some consulting on the side, which is fine.
Okay.
And I wound up turning one client into 3, into 8 clients. And the next thing you know, I created my own consulting company. I wound up hiring a couple of people. I had a great run for a couple of years, and I mostly focused on aviation and defense. I had been, like I said, been at Nellis many times, so I'd been involved in some of the exquisite portfolios that are developing and kind of working on. So I had a lot of knowledge of acquisition and requirements and some of our kind of unique space and air-enabled weapons kind of portfolio. And so that was of value to some of these companies that were trying to penetrate into the federal market and get contracts. So I wound up consulting for a couple of years, and I had a great run. It was fantastic. Working for yourself is awesome.
It is awesome, yes.
Gives you the flexibility to do the things you want to do and all that stuff. But I did that for a couple of years, and then I actually realized I kind of missed people.
Okay, fair enough.
I wanted to be on a team. I'd spent 30 years in the military on a team, everybody put on a jersey, go get a mission done, and leading people. And it was funny because I was kind of trying to figure out what was driving me.
Okay.
When I was in uniform, it was very simple. It was the mission. It was the unit. It was kind of laid out for you. And then in the private sector, in particular, when I was consulting, I was this kind of free agent.
Yeah.
And I was like, something's missing. I don't know what it was. And I really sat down for a couple months to try to figure it out.
Okay.
And I realized it was, culture, team, leadership, shared mission objective, shared vision. And so at the same time that I was kind of on this journey to find out what inspired me in my second life,
yes,
Boeing had reached out and said, hey, we'd really like you to we've been watching you. Your cooling off period is way gone. We'd love for you to maybe come onto the team. I had some friends that were there, and I wound up taking the leap. And so I wound up working for Boeing about 2 years ago, and then I've been fortunate to have a couple of changes in my job, and now I run around the world selling fighter jets.
Oh, that's so fun.
I'm an international arms dealer. That's
My
what I like
job
to say.
is so boring right now. Good night, man.
I have the best team. I have this great team. I have 3 young managers and 3 young contributors. They're all fired up. They're all, at the beginning. They're in the first third of their professional lives, and I'm in the last third of my professional life. And so it's really just great to be able to mentor and pour back knowledge and information and give them resources and watch them go out and do great stuff. So this is funny, Stevie. I was going to be out of town this week, but I elected that I needed to be home for a little bit, and I wasn't going to go. And I told my team, I'm like, you got to go run these international activities, and they all left. So at one point this week, I had a manager in Saudi Arabia, and I had a manager in Warsaw, Poland, negotiating with like the highest levels of government to help us bring in these multi-billion-dollar opportunities. So it's great to watch them go out and do their own thing. So I find a lot of passion in that now.
I love that so much. I travel for my job, not internationally, but I do travel for my job quite a bit, and it I don't know why, but there's a sense of success I have because I have to travel to DC for my job. And then I will stand outside in my hotel room and I will look out the window and I'll see the DC skyline because some cities just have the best skylines. And I will look at it and I will actually have conversations with my father and be like, look at this, Dad. Look at what I'm doing. Look at where I'm at. This is so cool. Because I knew he had spent time there, you know. So
DC's a pretty city.
It was really cool. The monuments, thankfully, my husband's a history nut like me. Yeah. So we have walked the Smithsonian's. We have hit, the only monument we haven't been in is Washington, is the only one we haven't hit yet. And we go to all of the war memorials.
Yep.
Because they're personal.
They're good. Yep.
And
they're good.
there's a touch to it that I can't. I can tell people all the time. My dad has a poster that said, "For those who have fought for freedom has a taste the protected will never know."
Yep.
And I always tell people, you have no understanding of. I was 8 and I knew my dad might not come back. And I didn't think he was going to die, but I knew that was a risk he was willing to take for what he believed in and what he stood up for. And so it tastes different to me, too. And it is a thing I constantly, my husband said, I'm very, very good at it, but I don't even think about it. If I pass anyone who is in uniform or I can tell that they serve or they are law enforcement or they're a first responder, I'm thanking them for their service every time because my dad didn't get thanked. And during the time when he went to Vietnam, he was in San Francisco in uniform and people actually spit on him because he was a military guy and they were upset about the war. And it's not like he started it, you know. I mean, he was just trying to serve his country kind of thing. And so I try to make that effort to do that because as a country, we've evolved and grown. And I think that the respect and the understanding of what military families sacrifice and what they give and what they're willing to do for us is becoming more prevalent. It's still got a long way to go. Some people still don't. And if you haven't lived in this world, you won't ever comprehend it. Like when they took my military ID away. That hurts.
I've been blessed. I've served in a period of time where we had nothing but overwhelming support from
awesome.
Our nation. You know, I was commissioned shortly after Desert Storm, right? And so that was a real cathartic moment for the country to be involved in arguably a righteous, short, successful military operation to expel Iraq from Kuwait, to have a political, put the bow on it and then come home. I think was a cathartic moment for the country to go like, okay, the military is not connected politically to the organization. They served, they went out. And so then of course 9/11 happened a few years later, about a decade later. Yeah. And that was quite a galvanizing moment when we all served in that period of time. So I've been blessed to serve in a period of time when I think society has got it, right? And they also recognize that what happened to our Vietnam veterans is not where we want to be. And there are different ways to show your political or your policy differences, and it's not against the service members who are just doing their job, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that one of my favorite parts of the freedom that we have in the U.S. is the fact that you are allowed to have a difference of opinion. It's okay.
By the way, it would be really boring if we didn't.
It would be very, very, very boring. It was funny because a lot of people don't. So when I was a child, my dad and my mother spoke with my sister and I very clearly so that we knew when you step off the base, you're not in America anymore. So you're in that country. And so you have to make sure you have your documents with you. You have to understand the risks you're at. You have to know where you are. Kind of thing. Now, Japan, I was super young. We were only there for a year. But Australia and stuff like that, I loved Australia. Oh my God, I'd go back to Australia in a heartbeat. But we got to go twice.
Cool.
And then when my dad tried to get to retire there, they're like, dude, you already got to go twice and you shouldn't have been able to do that. We'll take the little slip ups. But it is a thought process people, I don't think, understand that yes, when you are in a different country, you have to respect their culture and their values. You have to respect and understand. I love learning about the different cultures in other places. I get blown away all the time just, getting to talk to people and hearing about how they grew up or where it was. Because different for everybody.
Absolutely. We sound, I'll tell you, it's exactly the way I see the world.
Yeah.
And we sound you're saying things that really resonate with me. I think that's what made me successful connecting with my young airmen and the people that work for me. I was always fascinated by their story, fascinated where they come from. I'm fortunate and proud that my kids feel the same way, that they've grown up so much and they've been around so many different cultures, being in Singapore and Korea and Japan and Guam is, the United States, Hawaii, but England.
It's still a different world.
Wales, Scotland, Ireland, all through Italy. We spent Christmas in Prague. My daughter would be doing soccer games in Germany or Belgium. My son was playing baseball all across the UK. So totally agree with you. And I don't I don't have, America's a big country.
It is.
The United States is a huge country, right? I mean, 2 or 3 times the size of Europe.
Yeah.
So, when an American gets to Europe and we putz around on the train and we go to a couple countries, it's a massive vacation. On the other hand, you might not have left the state of Texas.
Right.
Comparatively speaking, geography wise.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of crazy cultures in our country too. I grew up in South Florida. That's where I'm from, Miami originally. I married a girl from Denver, Colorado.
There you go.
Those are different cultures.
Yep.
We've spent time in New York City and Boston, and we've spent time in West Texas, and those are different cultures. So, having lived all around the United States, I think, I don't blame anybody for having not left and seen other cultures, because to be honest with you, there's a lot of cultures here inside the lower 48. But it is great to get out and see the world and to be a witness and a consumer and seeing what all those are about and being curious, for sure. So my kids have the bug. They're telling me like, hey, they're telling my daughter's in medical school, and she's telling me her next Christmas break dates specifically, so that I will put them on the calendar and potentially plot some family vacation to Europe in that time frame when she's available.
Hint.
Yes, it's just like kind of underhanded thing. By the way,
but hey, just mentioning, it's lovely this time of year.
Munich and the Christmas markets, roll right in. So
that's fun. I actually have friends who go to Paris every year for Christmas.
Yeah.
She and her husband just go. They don't have any kids, and they just started as a tradition, and they just love it. It's their thing that they do for it. But it's like, we talk about people having differences and things. So my in-laws are perfectly content not really traveling out of the U.S. Yeah. They did Niagara Falls to Canada. Ooh. But for them, the road trips throughout the U.S. are what they enjoy. That's where they get the kick out of it. That's what they enjoy doing. So that's their thing. Whereas my husband and I are flying new places. Now, we made them go to some different places. We're actually taking them to Boston.
Cool.
None of us have been to Boston.
Patriots Trail.
We've got a lot we're going to try to work in. We're excited because my husband was born in Youngstown, Ohio.
Okay, baseball.
Cleveland's playing Boston when we're in town. So we're going to a game because the friend meeting us there is a Boston fan. So we're going to go up there to see. Now, I'm the daughter.
I was going to put that on the top 5. Go catch a baseball game in Fenway if that's your thing. So
I'm
there you go.
a super big sports girl, so I would love to visit every stadium, arena, ballpark throughout. I just think that'd be phenomenal to do. So I'm excited to go. My daddy was a Texan, so I'm a Houston Astros fan because he used to go watch them with his dad when they were a Colt 45. So it's like, but apparently I'm going to have to be a Cleveland fan for a game. So, okay.
That's fine.
Whatever. I can do it. I'm a Cowboys fan, but when the Raiders are playing, I don't mind putting on a Raiders shirt and being a Raiders fan for a day. So, got to support my home team. But yeah, it's an interesting trying to plan and figure out what we want to do because there is just so much.
Right.
To do, especially in a city like Boston. Like, holy crap!
I'm also got to the point where I know what I like. You know?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be open minded where I try something different. Like if I could go back to Scotland and play golf and hang out for 2 weeks, I'd go to Scotland and play golf and hang out for 2 weeks.
I can't even play golf, and I'd go to Scotland and play golf and hang out for 2 weeks.
Loved Ireland. I have tons of friends in the UK, so London and north of London. We could go there and make. And London's a city you could go to 10 times, and you would see something. The museums are fantastic.
Yeah.
I love Asia. I have
do too.
I've done quite a bit of time in Japan, but there's a lot of places I haven't been to. I haven't been up to ski in Sapporo, and I haven't been across the northern part of Japan. I could do that. Obviously, there's just great. So I'm
going to age
with
myself here, people. We actually went to Hong Kong before it went back under communist rule.
Well, that was what, 90. 90, when is that? When did it flip over? Something like in the 90s, right?
It was in the 90s, but we were there a while before that.
Yeah. I went to Hong Kong when it was owned by China.
Yeah. We went to it when it was still part of British. Mm-hmm. It was 80.
It's a really fascinating city.
82, 83.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there in the early 80s. And it was so fun because our hotel was all white and brass and like heaven. It was the Lee Perrins Gardens, I think, was the hotel. And then in our room, you'd open up the curtains and there was a brick wall outside your window. And then when you walked out of it, I mean, literally where the line ended of the hotel, all of a sudden you had the ducks hanging in the windows over here.
Yep.
You had it was just like, I loved it. It was so fun. Yeah, it was so fun.
I just got home. I just got back from Singapore and Jakarta.
Okay.
So Singapore is probably one of my favorite touristy kind of fun cities.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the weather's always exquisite. I mean, it's humid. You got to deal with that, but it's fine. But it's just so,
Says the man
so
from Florida.
appointed. It's so precise. Singapore's kind of cool. And then I got to Jakarta, so I'd never been to Indonesia before, and it was really fascinating. It was a hustle bustle city, much more developing, a lot of excitement, a lot of activity going on, and it was really cool. So I had never been to Jakarta. That's the first time I've been to a new place.
That's awesome. That's awesome. My husband and I, there's some places I want to go that he could take or leave, and that's fine. But because I grew up around Asia, I'm huge on it. But I want to take him to Australia because several of the bases I was on when I was a kid got closed down. That'll make you feel old. And Exmouth is now a resort town where Harold E. Holt used to be. And Harold E. Holt was where we were stationed. And so I want to take him. The house we lived in was they do cinder block houses because of all the weather. And I think somebody bought it a couple of years ago for like over $1 million.
You should go.
And I was like, I have to show him because the whole city was a block.
Australia's. I've been to Australia, but I've only been up to the north part. And whenever I talk to my friends that are Australians, I tell them I've been to Darwin, and they're like, "That's not Australia."
No, that's not. Yeah.
And so I haven't been to Sydney or Brisbane or Melbourne or anything like that, and I need to get over there.
You need to check out Perth. You need to go onto the west coast. That's where we were. That's where Exmouth is.
You were on Perth. Okay,
we were by Tower Zero.
There you go.
My dad actually, I think, climbed Tower Zero. I haven't gone up on it, but I've seen it. But yeah, we were over there. That's where we were stationed.
Because that's like a 8-hour flight from Sydney. If not more. I mean, across the continent.
It was cool. And there's the school that my sister and I went to started a thing several years ago, and they have bricks where you could get your name put on it. So I bought one, and my sister and my name and our years we were there is in a brick on there.
All the foundation is laid for you to go back to Australia.
Yeah. So I can't wait to take my husband there. But I'm bougie now. I don't fly Mac flights. So when we go on big trips, sometimes I'll present my ideas to my husband, and my husband will be like, okay, wow, all right.
Time to go rob a bank.
I mean, yes, he's in real estate. He does very well. I'm spoiled as it is, but I do have expensive taste
you have
sometimes.
Standards.
Well, Qantas is who I'd want to fly in.
They fly right out of Dallas and LA.
He's 6'2". I got to have at least business class for the man because he's tall.
See, you and my wife
it's
would
for
get along
his
really
sciatica. I can't let it hurt him on it, Got to be comfortable. It's not for me at all.
Down with it. Okay. Okay.
But, that is the fun thing. We got to do, we went with my mom to Hawaii. We took her to Maui. And because it's an island Jim and I have been to. And a lot of times when we went, we were always Oahu with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Stay at the Halikoa, And we had some hares from my daddy. And so we went and we dropped him in the ocean because he always had wanted to do that. And but he's interred out. His ashes are out at the Boulder City Veterans.
Okay. Good.
And that's where she'll end up eventually because that's what they researched and wanted. But it's an amazing memory to have that connection whenever Jim and I go to Hawaii.
Yep.
I remember different things that we did with my dad and my mom and the stuff out there in the family. And I just think that's so cool. Everybody doesn't have those. So your fact that your kids have so much Europe memories with your family,
it's
that's awesome to see.
And Hawaii was our first duty station when I was a lieutenant, and then we would, every time we were in Okinawa flying home, we would stay in Hawaii for a couple of days,
right?
To kind of like decompress and then go home. So the kids have a lot of Hawaii time. In fact, I just took everybody to Maui in the fall.
Nice.
So my wife and I love Maui. We go there.
We do
every couple of years.
We stay in Wailea Beach.
We stay at Grand Wailea down on the south side. Yep.
Okay.
And so we stayed over this last time. We stayed in Kaanapali.
Did you? Okay.
Where the fires were overpass. It was intentional.
Yeah.
We wanted to stay over there and to, be a tourist and, bring our money there. And I know they're recovering. It was heartbreaking.
Oh, I imagine.
Heartbreaking.
I imagine.
To see what I would consider to be probably the lack of progress, given the fires were a couple of years ago now.
We had actually just been there in the September prior to the fires. And we had been in that town. And we had eaten at the
Lanai,
cheeseburger.
Right? Lanai. I can't remember.
You see
right,
pop quizzing me, but anyway, we had, so when we saw the video, we were like, oh good God, heartbreaking on it. So we were actually, this is so sad. We were terrified with the fires and where they were going to go, and we were like, they can't spread across the island to get to Mama's Fish House because that's the best restaurant. And it was like,
everybody's got a connection, right, to their vacation spots, and that place is beautiful and all that, and it'll come back. But it was stunning how slow the progress is to come back. Some of those houses are going to be very difficult to rebuild.
Oh yeah.
Built under code years ago and all that stuff, and the codes have all changed. I know LA is going through this with the Palisades and the fires that they just had. But it was surprising the intensity of the damage. And so when we were there, we made it our goal to visit the small businesses and eat the small restaurants and to get off of the property and to get out and do that stuff. And it was and people were excited and they're passionate about rebuilding over there, but it's taken way too long.
We kept tracking the tree, the banyan tree.
The tree looks good. Right,
yeah,
it's coming back.
That was what we kept tracking because that one was cool on it and it was fabulous. But yeah, it's interesting how it flows and where it's at, and I love the exposure I've gotten to the different worlds I've seen. I haven't even seen enough. Right. Yet there's still so much more to see on it, But
I think that's, the travel that we did while we were in uniform and the travel that we're trying to do now, I think is one of the things that's bridged that transition period for us. And the kind of work that I'm in right now, I'm still always talking to uniform members. I'm still connected to my friends. I got out, I retired. While I did almost 30 years, a lot of my peers are still in, and they're all 2 and 3 and 4-star generals now. So I'm still connected to them. So I feel like I still have a lot of work to do to help them now on this side of the fence. And unfortunately, they find comfort in sharing their complaints and gripes to me because I'm a safe space. I went to dinner with a friend of mine 2 nights ago. He's a 2-star general, and we had a good time, trying to solve the world's problems. And I still feel super connected. But anyway, I know you do this podcast that for people beyond the military. To answer the question that we talked about like 20 minutes ago, which was, I had a plan that completely got thwarted. Yeah. And so I had to really pivot very quickly. I think, I reflect back on getting out of the military, and it's a tough road that especially our young folks have to go do. If they do 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 years, it's interesting. And a lot of people don't get this. And the same thing is true with our first responders. They probably joined when they were 18. So you are still developing physically, you're still developing mentally, you're very much so developing your character and your moral compass. And when you jump in the military, we do a very good job of quickly interceding in that development. I am, as a commander, if I'm going to get a young Marine to come ashore at Iwo Jima and assault Mount Suribachi, I have to instill in them a level of teamwork, culture, pride, discipline, unity, conformity, sacrifice at a very short amount of time. So it's intense. And then the longer you stay in the military, the more that codifies and it like binds to your genetic, code so that when you get out, the first thing I felt like is that was gone.
Yeah.
Now I was ready for that. I was like, I knew it was coming to an end and I'd had a good run. I'd done everything I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I was also very blessed to be at the rank I was at, with the retirement I was at. So I knew some things were going to be, easy for me to kind of overcome. But if you're at the 5-year point, a 6-year point, or 7-year point, you jump out and you're enlisted and you're an E5, let's say, and you have been indoctrinated, which is what we do, right? During that incredibly formative period. And then you jump out into space, you do have to have a plan.
Yeah.
I think you have to have a real, conscious, we have some good services. Some of them are congressionally mandated transition assistance program. Those are okay. But I think a podcast like what you're doing, the community support that's going on, those young members need to have a real look in the mirror and go like, this is going to be different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the things that I have found safety and comfort in, the things that I've really bonded to may or may not be, more than likely not be in the next space that I'm, so I got to go find that in other places.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I think one thing I would recommend to the viewers if they're in that transition space is get involved in the nonprofit space. I find that, I help Honor Flight, Southern Nevada. I helped the USO for a little bit. I helped the Golden Knights in our alumni association. I'm the executive director for that nonprofit. And and I find like a lot of, similar thinking, compassion, empathetic, engaged people in that nonprofit space. And that to me is a really cool culture pocket that I can jump into and I feel like I'm home.
Yeah.
Right. And so in the giving, so I would recommend that to any of the folks that are thinking about what's one, and especially the veteran organizations, because it's super, you already speak the language, you got all the cheat codes.
Right.
You know how to have the bitches, gripes, and complaints sessions.
Yeah.
And chances are you're going to find you think you're salty, you're going to find some really salty veteran who you're going to fall in love with. And then you can get in some veterans organizations. And that's a really great like interlocutor to the next chapter.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the big things we talk about is mentorship.
Yes.
We've had several guests on who transitioned out of service, and they talk about the mentorship was key. Some of them said, I didn't want to talk about what was bothering me,
right,
but somebody wanted to talk to me. And through them talking to me about their issues, it helped me go, hey, you know what? Maybe I do want to talk to someone. So you never know the path it's going to take you on. But in life, mentors are always a great thing because sometimes they can just guide you a little better, and they've been through it themselves, and it will be different for each person, but it gives you a path.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Stevie.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I failed to take advantage of that. I felt like I didn't want to put people out. I was a general. COVID was going on. What do I need a mentor for? And instead, now I spend a lot of my time. I have, maybe once a month, somebody on LinkedIn reaches out to me and says, hey, I'm thinking about retiring. Do you have time for a phone call? Of course, I try to make myself available for all these folks. I see him at all the conferences I go to. I've drank more coffee than they shake a stick at, talking about, talking about this transition period and me, and I start off very tactical. Hey, you got to do these tactical things. And then I, go to very strategic kind of conversations, having a mentor, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. No. It's cool. In the military, we had a fairly no-fail kind of mentality, but you will fail in the private sector. You will fail in Chapter 2. It's okay. You know what I mean? You just got to get up the next morning, put your pants back on and get back at it, and, and all these things. So I agree with you 100%. A mentor would be absolutely foundational for somebody to make a good transition to the next chapter. Well,
I have to say, you'll have to come back because
thanks.
I love talking travel with you. I love talking, just every aspect where we're going. And I really appreciate you being on here. And thank you so much for your service. And thank your wife and your kids for theirs as well, because it is a sacrifice. So thank you very, very much. If I did not mention before, he did retire I can't say it. Your rank when you
Brigadier General.
Thank you. See, I got tongue-tied. Oh, whatever. No one's old on my show, okay? We're like scotch. We just keep getting better. All right, my friends, it has been an absolute pleasure to see you again. You know what time it is. It means you need to like, share, follow, subscribe, YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, Facebook. Our website is so close to being launched. I cannot wait to get it for you guys, to get you that access to those resources. Thank you again for joining us. We will see you next time.
Faded photographs covered now with rising creases, tickets torn in half.